The first Samurai Warriors came out all the way back in 2004. I know, feel old yet? That's like 16, 17 years ago. It was a success and people wanted more, so Koei, being Koei, provided more, a lot more, and the series is still going strong to this day. There's another major release just around the corner, and Samurai Warriors 5 is doing something no other Samurai Warriors game has done. They are completely overhauling the game, revamping its entire cast of characters, removing many of the series staples, including the poster boy Yukimura Sanada. Many will be returning in Samurai Warriors 5, of course, and many more of the familiar faces might be coming back at a later date, maybe with DLC or in future games. But it just dawned on me that this is kind of a big occasion. Unlike Dynasty Warriors, which has reinvented itself multiple times, for better or for worse, over the course of its run, Samurai Warriors has remained consistent. It's had the same cast of characters since 2004, up until its last major release, Samurai Warriors 4-2, back in like 2016, 2017 or something. For that whole time, for 4 main games and several spin-offs and crossovers, Koei have kept the same cast of characters and built on it, adding new characters, sometimes temporarily taking some out, but we've gotten to know and get used to the cast of Samurai Warriors. Even in terms of their gameplay mechanics, they've remained relatively consistent for more than 15 years now. But now, for the first time in over 15 years, we're gonna have to say goodbye to this cast of characters. At least for now. But if Samurai Warriors 5 is a success, maybe forever. At least this cast of characters as we know it now. And that's both exciting and sad. I'm gonna miss a lot of these faces until they make their return. So before they make their exit, I want to take some time to look at each and every member of the Samurai Warriors cast. Evaluate how fun they were to play as, who had the best design, the best story, etc. All of this is completely subjective, of course. I'm only going to be ranking them based on my opinion alone, but I'm thinking I might open up a poll or something to you guys watching this, so that you can get your opinion on who is S tier and who is trash tier. So what are the metrics that I judge a character by then? Well, first off, there's their gameplay. How good does it feel to play that character, and how powerful are they? Do they have any exploits or hacks with their gameplay mechanic? Next, I'm going to be judging their story and characterization. Do they have a compelling story that is told for them? How is it told across all of the games in the series? Do they have a likable personality or memorable and hilarious cutscenes? If a character has all of this going for them, I might choose to play them even if they're not that strong mechanically. Finally, design. How cool is their hair and their armor and their weapon and their general look? Do they have a cool voice actor or anything like that going for them? For each character, I'm going to rate these 3 fields on a tier list, from D tier being the lowest, going up through C, B, A, and then finally S tier being the highest. And then once I've given each character a score in these 3 fields, I'll average that score and that'll be their final rating. But this is going to be a little more than just ranking characters on a tier list. This is going to be something of a farewell ceremony. So we're going to talk about the character's history, their most memorable moments in the series, changes to their designs and their movesets between games, and how much I'll miss them. Now, I will be ranking the characters on a standard tier list. It's got D tier, C tier, B tier, A tier, and S tier. But I've added plus and minuses to B and A tier, just because I feel like a lot of characters are going to end up here. And I feel like it's worth distinguishing the solid A's from the light A's, you know what I mean? Also, I made an I don't know tier for the characters from Spirit of Sanada, because I never played that game. And I will be ranking the characters in a completely random order. Oh, also, I'll do my best to pronounce their names, but I don't speak Japanese. I'm an English-speaking layman, amateur weeb, so don't expect perfect pronunciation, but I will try my best. Without any further ado, let's draw our first character from the virtual hat, and it is none other than Ginchiyo Tachibana.
Satisfaction comes first. Not bad, young one. A woman?
Not any woman. A Tachibana. Ginchiyo Tachibana.
Like many of you, I'm sure, I actually started Samurai Warriors with Samurai Warriors 2. When I first rented the game, I picked it up off the shelf of my local Video Easy, and the PAL version cover had 3 characters on it, that being Kotaro Fuma, Yukimura Sanada, and the character we're talking about here, Ginchiyo Tachibana. And her design really stood out to me the most. It was the first time in a Warriors game that I saw a female character being fully armor-clad head to toe with a spiky serrated sword. She looked like the most serious and ready for battle female character in the series that I had seen thus far. Most of the female character designs in Dynasty Warriors 3 through 5 were super cool and serious and ready to fight, don't get me wrong. But the female characters in those games usually were kind of lightweight. They wore what looked like lightweight cloth armor and usually used some kind of unconventional weapon. So to see a more kind of standard and typically strong and masculine kind of female character design here was cool and refreshing. Her design hasn't really changed a whole lot ever since Samurai Warriors 2. It's always been an iteration on her same armor and sword and helmet, or circlet, or whatever you want to call it. Along with her lightning-infused blade and lightning powers, she's a very visually appealing character. I find myself playing her a lot in Samurai Warriors or Warriors Orochi, even though there's some shortcomings in terms of her gameplay mechanics, which we'll get to later. But I'm going to rank her design first because it was her on the cover all those years ago at the Video Easy that first got me into the Samurai Warriors series, and she was one of the first characters I played in that game because of that. Overall, she's a very cool character design and very distinct from the female characters. That being said, I think it's just a little short of S tier. I'm not going to give her an S tier design. She's a solid A in terms of her character design, but I can't quite put my finger on why, but I can't bring myself to pull her all the way into the S tier ranking in terms of her character design, so she gets an A in that field. Anyway, next, let's talk about her gameplay mechanic. So in pretty much every game, Ginchiyo always feels a bit weak out of the gate. When you first start playing her, her reach isn't very far and her moves aren't particularly flashy. They're all pretty quick, like it's decent to start off, but she feels a bit weak, a little underpowered at first. That being said, she does get better as she progresses. First, let's talk about her in Samurai Warriors 2. So her short range, her lack of reach with her melee attacks is a pretty consistent problem even as you level her up in Samurai Warriors 2. You're meant to cover for it by using one of your 2 special moves, that being the one that adds reach to your blade, but it feels kind of bad having to use one of your special moves in the middle of combat to give a decent amount of reach to your melee combos. Like, in the time that I spent powering up my blade, I could have just gotten another combo off, you know? So I often find myself not even really using it. Her second special move looks really cool. It calls down a bunch of lightning strikes around her, but it's not that great. It can be blocked, for one, and where the lightning strike seems to be totally random. When it hits, it is a stun, but it's a stun that causes them to fall to the ground, so you have a limited amount of time to capitalize on it. But it's pretty good if you're dealing with a huge group of enemies and don't just want to run straight into them. You can turn it on and run around them and hope for lightning to strike them to give you an opening. Other than that, though, I gotta be honest, for a character who made their debut in Samurai Warriors 2, feels a little bit underpowered. A lot of her moves are either pretty sanded or a little below average or pretty clunky. She has a couple really strong moves for clearing big groups of enemies, that being her 4-square triangle, her 5-square triangle, and this move, which causes her to charge forward with a lightning rush aura all around her, which is really cool. Her Muso in Samurai Warriors 2 is absolutely terrible. For one, it doesn't really combo with most of your kit. Doesn't combo with your extended normal strings or any of your charge attacks, because there's a little bit of a wind-up time, and it has a really small range. That being said, it does juggle enemies repeatedly. It doesn't knock them away when you hit, but it is really good at killing officers when you hit them with it. But there's not a lot of ability to combo into it. Oftentimes you're just hitting them with the Musho attack entirely on its own. Ginchiyo in Samurai Warriors 2 is decent, but she doesn't have anything crazy. There's nothing in her kit that's OP. She does have a decent-ish opener in her special square move, but overall, in terms of the most powerful and fun to play characters in Samurai Warriors 2, Ginchiyo is not even close to the top. She's not bad, don't get me wrong, she's just kinda decent. To be honest, she's maybe a little bit below average in terms of her gameplay mechanics in Samurai Warriors 2. A lot of these gameplay mechanic shortcomings are made up for in Samurai Warriors 4. She has hyper attacks, of course, and in fact now she is a hyper attack focused character, which is a change from her being a normal focused character in Samurai Warriors 2. Hyper attacks make literally every single character in Samurai Warriors 4 god tier at clearing big groups of trash enemies, so she doesn't have that weakness anymore, but she's actually worse in some other ways. For starters, she only has one special attack now, and she kept the Energize Your Sword special move instead of the Call Down Lightning Strike. This is a problem because basically the one thing you really need to keep in mind when picking characters in Warriors games for the highest difficulty levels and the most tough stages is having a strong opener, a good way to break up the enemy formation so that you're not running into a huge group of officers and troops and they all attack you and instantly kill you. You want something to soften them up, stun them, damage them from a distance that makes your life a lot easier. And now that her second special move is gone, she no longer really has an opener. She has to open up by going face forward into the enemy, which on Samurai Warriors 4, to be honest, is completely fine in most circumstances and on most difficulties, but if you're like me and you like to play hard mode straight away when you're level 1 and leveling up, and then switch over to Nightmare mode once you're like level 25 to 30 in Samurai Warriors 4. You know, doing that to apply pressure to yourself and to keep the game consistently at least kinda challenging. Then Ginchiyo feels a little subpar when playing this way. You kinda have to make up for her weakness by using the active skills and epiphany skills. So overall, in terms of her gameplay and power level, I'm going to give her a C. She's not bad, she's far from the worst. She's alright, but she does feel a little below average and underpowered. You can definitely make it work, but it just doesn't feel like she has anything that is like super OP that you can spam and abuse to get through tough situations you shouldn't be able to get through. Lastly, her story and characterization. Ever since her debut in Samurai Warriors 2, she's pretty much always been a minor side character. Hell, even her intro cutscene, the first thing you see when you play her story mode, is actually a shared cutscene. I had already seen it from playing Hideyoshi Toyotomi's story mode. And then throughout her story mode, the only other unique cutscene she gets in that game is her ending cutscene. I think this is a bit disappointing considering this is her debut appearance. She should get a little bit extra to her story mode. What little characterization and story she does get is interesting and fun and kinda traditionally satisfying. Basically, the game starts out with her battling Yoshihiro Shimazu. That's a tough one. Her story starts out with her doing battle with Yoshihiro Shimazu. Her clan and their clan have a long-standing feud. You get the sense of a valiant effort on the Tachibana's side, but clearly they're outmatched. Ginchiyo has inherited a clan in decline, on the back foot, losing the war to the Shimazu, and she has to side with the Toyotomi, a much bigger outside faction, in order to settle it. However, upon winning the battle, rather than exacting her vengeance and killing the Shimazu, she gets made to side alongside them in the larger Toyotomi army. And this leads to a pretty standard, pretty by-the-numbers vengeance into redemption story. Kind of like what you see with Ling Tong and Gan Ning in Dynasty Warriors 5. Basically, over the course of time, through battling side by side, Ginchiyo eventually overcomes her lust for vengeance and gains a sort of respect for the Shimazu. She does do battle with him one last time in her unique final stage, which is really cool. I really like it when characters get a unique stage just to them. I mean, it's on a reused map, but whatever, it's a new scenario. Anyway, she defeats him, but decides to spare his life, and they make up and share some camaraderie, and it's all, you know, it's standard kind of stuff, but there's a cool little arc for her and Yoshihiro to have together. I gotta say though, I'm a little annoyed when I play through Samurai Warriors 2 as Ginchiyo, because pretty much every male character you come across makes some kind of sexist remark. Like, I'm in the middle of slicing up dudes by the dozen, and I'm having to deal with Yoshihiro calling me a cute little thing, and Sakon Shima making some condescending, negging-like remarks. Like, come on dude, I'm just trying to be badass and kill a bunch of guys here. In Samurai Warriors 3, the direction they decided to take with Ginchiyo Tachibana's storyline didn't appeal to me as much. Basically, it went from the relationship that she had with Yoshihiro being the focus to the focus being on the relationship between her and her husband. I forget his name, but the other Tachibana dude. Pretty much most of those games' cutscenes were kind of melodramatic, sad cutscenes of them expressing their love for each other occasionally while fighting on the battlefield. It's all kind of groan and eye-roll inducing for me, but also unintentionally hilarious because the husband's voice acting in that game is just unbelievably wooden.
Are you afraid of death?
Not I. I will be proud to die for the Tachibana.
Use your head.
For Samurai Warriors 4, unfortunately Ginchiyo and her husband are nearly non-existent in the story of Samurai Warriors 4. In all of the story campaigns, I think they only show up like once or twice, and I can only remember or find one single cutscene featuring Ginchiyo. There's a few events with her in Chronicle mode, but these events are delivered in the most flat and boring way, and I never really cared for Chronicle mode. Overall, when it comes to the story of Ginchiyo Tachibana and her characterization, she was already a minor side character in her debut game, and unfortunately she's gotten more and more relegated to the sidelines as time has gone on. I'm gonna end up giving her, honestly, a pretty generous rating, all things considered, mostly because I just like her tough-as-nails chick personality. So overall, I'm gonna rank her a solid C in terms of characterization and story. Overall, I really want to rate Ginchiyo Tachibana much higher in all the categories. I have a sort of personal attachment to her. I'll always play her in Samurai and Warriors Orochi games, even though she's not the strongest and her story is always given a very minor role. But she's got a kind of draw that overcomes the fact that Koei has clearly no idea what to do with this character or really any interest in putting the focus on her. So, overall, she scores a C on gameplay, a C on story, and I'm going to give her an A+ on design. And this is overall going to leave her with a ranking of B+. If you ask me just straight up off the top of my head, not really thinking about it, breaking it down, I would probably rate Ginchiyo a little higher, maybe an A-, but taking a thorough look at her throughout the series, she's never really gotten the respect and love that she deserves. I feel like this character could potentially be a big fan favorite if they put a little bit more effort into giving her story agency. But I guess there's just a lot of characters in the cast and they don't have time for everyone. So they just decide, hey, she's a cool armored chick with a lightning sword. We don't really need to do much else. That being said, from what we've seen so far from Samurai Warriors 5, she will not be back. Maybe in a later date as like a DLC character or something. Maybe they'll make a Samurai Warriors 5 Part 2, you know, post-time skip or something. Who really knows? But for the time being, I'm really gonna miss seeing her in the roster, especially because they haven't replaced her yet with another armor-clad, sword-wielding female character. And I would really like to see her design in the new art style. I think she could be a really cool looking character. But anyway, rest in peace, Ginchiyo. Hope to see you back, and hopefully better than ever. So, anyway, time to move on to the next character. And next up, we have the original Ninja Master, Hanzo Hattori.
My life is my master's. I am but an obedient shadow. Always lurking, always in darkness.
Hanzo was one of the 2 ninjas in Samurai Warriors 1. Being one of the original 15 characters of that game, he stuck around for the entire series, never being subbed in and out like some other characters have. In real life history, Hanzo Hattori is probably the most famous ninja of all time, and so fittingly his portrayal in Samurai Warriors has always been the most classic, true to the ninja trope character as possible. He doesn't talk very much, he shows very little emotion, and he always lurks in the shadows, with a extremely edgy English voice actor in the first 2 games. Well, a couple different voice actors. Throughout the whole series, he's always been kind of a minor side character, often present across a multitude of different important battles, usually appearing right on top of your commander's head, ready to kill him in a few minutes if you don't respond. But we usually don't get a whole lot of cutscenes and dialogue with him. They kind of play up the mystery, like who really knows what Hanzo's thinking and feeling. Not really about him. He's simply a ultra-loyal force of death that would do anything and everything for Ieyasu. And in the Samurai Warriors games, he's portrayed as having some kind of magic powers, you know, classic ninjutsu. He makes clones and doubles, he can go invisible and appear where he's not supposed to appear, and all of that stuff to do with his personality carries over to his gameplay mechanics. There's a lot to talk about with Hanzo Hattori's gameplay mechanics, considering he's been in every Samurai Warriors game. So I'm going to start with Samurai Warriors 1. In Samurai Warriors 1, to be honest, his normal and charge attacks are fairly clunky. They're a bit difficult to combo, and they make him like jump around and stuff a lot. And given the fact that that game could have you easily drop combos and it doesn't allow you to lock on or have a soft lock, this honestly made him feel kind of annoying to play for me. Although he did have a ranged guard break in his base charge move, and that's very handy. And a good Musou attack for clearing big groups of enemies, but surprisingly not very good for killing officers. I haven't gone back to play Samurai Warriors 1 in depth in a long time. I only briefly checked it out after playing Samurai Warriors 2 and just thought, I can't go back. Samurai Warriors 2 just feels a lot better to play to me. I really like how they redesigned his character and his gameplay mechanics in Samurai Warriors 2. In Samurai Warriors 2, he's a special skill-oriented character, and he gets 2 really good and 1 extremely experimental and fun to play with special move. His first special move, his special square move, is a wave of fire, then followed up by slamming the ground and then unleashing a tornado that whirls around him. It's pretty good, maybe not busted, it can be blocked, however it's still a really good opener / defensive move. When I have a whole lot of enemy troops and officers coming at me as Hanzo, I like to spam this and then double jump away, and just do that until I soften the group up a bit. But his second special move is next level. He literally gets Shadow Clone Jutsu, and I fucking love it. He starts off summoning 1, but as he levels up, he can summon multiple, and you can actually control and move the shadow clones independent of yourself. You can even slightly off-time your attack animations to make them do a different attack. And you can play with this in a whole lot of really interesting ways. You can have your shadow clones attack somebody way off in the distance and the AI isn't programmed to block those shadow clones attacks. You can get your shadow clones behind an enemy who is blocking you from the front and then turn around to get the shadow clones to hit him from behind. All of these kinds of things are a bit clunky and hard to pull off though. The old Warriors games were nowhere near as generous in terms of letting you pick up combos again after dropping them. Once an enemy hit the ground, there was very few moves to get them off the ground. So trying to do complicated combos with your shadow clones is kinda tricky, but even if you aren't able to accomplish that, you can still clear way bigger crowds of enemies than you usually would by having you and your 1, 2, or 3 shadow clones attacking a whole bunch of enemies at once. Hanzo still carries over a bit of his clunky feeling from Samurai Warriors 1 with his normal and charge attacks, but these new attacks make him very close to being S tier in the gameplay department in Samurai Warriors 2. Now, I'm not going to talk much about how he plays in Samurai Warriors 3 because I never really played Samurai Warriors 3. I never owned a Nintendo Wii, and I don't fancy playing a game that isn't in English, yada yada yada. Skipping ahead now to Samurai Warriors 4. Now, obviously, in Samurai Warriors 4, Hanzo gets hyper attacks, really ridiculously strong crowd clearing capabilities, but not that much stronger relative to all the other characters in the cast, even though Hanzo is now a hyper-focus character instead of a special focus character. So unfortunately he loses one special move. Thankfully it's not the Shadow Clone Jutsu, he keeps that one, although it's not as good as before. You can only summon 2 Shadow Clones now, and you can't move them independently of yourself, so it ultimately just feels like kind of a combo enhancer. It really sucks. Samurai Warriors 2 had these Shadow Clones down really well. It was really fun to play around with them. Now their design is completely boring and static. You can't really mess around with them and trick the game in any kind of way. Also, his Fire Wave / Elemental Magic ninjutsu that he misses from Samurai Warriors 2 kinda hurts him. Because he's missing that, and he's missing his straight triangle move, the ranged guard break, now Hanzo doesn't have a strong opener, so I would probably avoid playing him on the highest difficulties. So overall, it really feels like they nerfed him a lot in Samurai Warriors 4. Hell, I'd take him in Samurai Warriors 4, how he worked in Samurai Warriors 2. Even missing hyper attacks, I would make do. Unfortunately, Samurai Warriors 2 is the only game in not only the Samurai Warriors series, but the Warriors Orochi series that has given him his 2 special attacks, his Fire Wave and his Multi-Shadow Clone. So in Samurai Warriors 2, he's a really solid A+, maybe even S tier character in terms of gameplay. However, in all the other ones, he's kinda more middle of the pack, kind of B tier. So in the end, I'm gonna give him a gameplay score of A. He gets a solid A. He's had his ups and downs, but he's always been a fairly solid and reliable character. I just wish that they would lean into him being the ninjutsu special attack specialist ninja, rather than making every ninja a hyper-focused character. But moving on. Now before I covered gameplay, I think I really said all there was to be said about Hanzo's story and characterization. Mysterious, murderous, edgy, loyal, and he has a rivalry with some of the other ninja characters in the cast. It's all solid, it's all done well enough. It's just not amazing, and I feel like the most legendary and famous ninja of all time should maybe have a more compelling story arc. But then again, maybe that's just a ninja's lot in life. Anyway, so I'm gonna give his story and characterization a solid B. Not B+, not B-. Just, it's pretty good. It's fine. It is what it needs to be, and it doesn't go above and beyond that. Next is character design, and this one is a real mixed bag. He's been redesigned in every game quite substantially, and how cool he looks varies a lot from game to game. Personally, I like his Samurai Warriors 2 design the best. His Samurai Warriors 1 design is a close second, and these designs are both like solid A, maybe A+ in terms of visual design, whereas the Samurai Warriors 3 design, and especially the Samurai Warriors 4 design, look really shit, ugly, out of place, and not at all like what a ninja should be wearing. I mean, come on, in Samurai Warriors 4, you've got your ninja wearing full plate mail armor. Maybe it's kinda tropey, but I kinda think a ninja should be lightly armored and, you know, look like a ninja. And on top of that, I think his armor in Samurai Warriors 3 and 4 is just plain ugly. I'd honestly rank his character designs in Samurai Warriors 3 and 4 as low as like a C or even a D. That being said, I think given that at one stage he looked really cool, at other stages, unfortunately the more recent versions of Hanzo don't look very cool in my opinion. So I'm gonna say average out and give his design a B. But that's across the whole series. Hanzo kinda gets off lucky. If I was ranking his character design in 4 alone, I'd probably rank him a C or even a D. So, to summarize, we have his gameplay and power level. Hanzo has an A rating. His story and characterization is a B. Same with his design and cool factor is also a B. So, overall, this gives him a final score of B+. I really like Hanzo. I'll always check him out in any game where he's in the roster, and hope that he plays as well as he did in Samurai Warriors 2. And he's always felt like a classic staple supporting character of the Samurai Warriors cast. Maybe he doesn't need to be the star, and he's fine just lurking in the shadows. Now, he's back in Samurai Warriors 5. His design looks quite a lot different than what we're used to. I'm honestly not too sure how I feel about his design currently. It looks pretty cool. It's definitely better than 3 or 4. He definitely looks like an actual ninja now. His mask, I don't know. I guess it kinda looks cool. Kinda reminds me of the Anbu Black Ops masks from Naruto. I really hope they give Hanzo a bunch of cool ninjutsu moves in Samurai Warriors 5. I really like the idea of him being like the magic specialist ninja. Alright, that's enough about Hanzo. He can creep back into the shadows with a B+ rating. On to the next character. Now then, on to the next randomly selected character, and wow, the random order gave a stark contrast here. We move from 2 serious straight people in the series to Yoshimoto Imagawa, or he who just wants to play Kimari. It's
just not the same on my own. If only I had someone to play with.
kind of a puzzling decision Koei Tecmo made with this character, given who Yoshimoto was as a historical figure. But Yoshimoto Imagawa is a comic relief character in Samurai Warriors for whatever reason. Maybe a little less so in 1, where in Samurai Warriors 1 Yoshimoto had an actual story role to play, whereas in Samurai Warriors 2 he was basically purely a joke gimmick character added in Extreme Legends. No stages for him where he's leading a force like he did historically, no real story written for him. He's just there participating in other battles as a weird gimmick joke who just wants to play Kimari with everyone. Even in Samurai Warriors 1, where he had a story portrayed, he was still just a goofy, dumb comic relief character, and his jokes are funny for about 5 minutes, or like the first time you hear them. Basically the joke is Yoshimoto Imagawa just wants to play Kimari, a ball game reminiscent of like Hacky Sack or something, and that's about it. He wants this war to be over so everyone can just play Kimari. And there's a line or two about how he might appear to be a fool, but actually he's a lot more serious than he looks and you shouldn't underestimate him. But actually all he does is act like an idiot for his runtime. In Samurai Warriors 1, he had an actual story told for him, as I mentioned before. If I was to rank Samurai Warriors 1, well, Extreme Legends he gets the story mode. He's only a unique NPC in Samurai Warriors 1. But anyway, if I was to rank his story in Samurai Warriors 1 Extreme Legends and his appearances as a unique NPC in base game Samurai Warriors 1, I'd probably give him like a very light, hesitant C. He has an actual role to play, so I won't give it a D, but in every other game he doesn't have a role to play really, and it is a D. So I'm gonna go ahead and give Yoshimoto's story and characterization a D rating. It's always been kinda shit, and I'm really looking forward to a much new and better looking take on the character in Samurai Warriors 5 in my opinion. But speaking of dumb gimmicks and Kimari, let's talk about how Yoshimoto Imagawa played. In both Samurai Warriors 1 Extreme Legends and Samurai Warriors 2 Extreme Legends, he's a charge type character, and he's a really clunky, slow, awkward, and weak character overall. He has maybe 1 or 2 gimmicks, 1 or 2 weird little tricks that are actually kinda OP in a way, that make him not terrible, but at the same time, when you first pick him up and play Yoshimoto for the first 5 to 10 minutes in these old games, you're gonna be thinking, what the fuck, this character is fucking pathetic. And to be honest, it's been a while since I played Samurai Warriors 1, and they didn't have special attacks in Samurai Warriors 1. And I remember Yoshimoto being absolutely useless and pathetic in those games, even once you leveled him up. Sure, he has a ranged guard break AoE blast in his charge move, but it doesn't do that much damage when it breaks guard, and it has a really slow wind-up time, so enemy officers almost always end up guarding. It's kind of a decent opener, I guess. It feels like something you would want in a game like Warriors Orochi. We have free characters you can rotate in and out. Not what you want on the one and only character you're playing as. In Samurai Warriors 2 Extreme Legends, they brought back Yoshimoto yet again, this time with 2 special attacks. One is hilarious and almost useless, but kinda has a purpose. It's playing dead. You faint to the ground and play dead and lie there. It doesn't fool the enemy, they all still try to attack you, but in Samurai Warriors 2, when you're lying on the ground, you're pretty much safe. There's nothing they can really hit you with. It's actually a little more useful than it sounds at first, because it gives you invincibility frames both while you're fainting and once you hit the ground. So you can actually use it when an enemy tries to swing at you and their weapon will just go right through you and not deal damage. And you can kind of use this to, like, I don't know, say you're fighting an officer with a bunch of allies around, or just your bodyguard. You could play dead to avoid an attack, and get up instantly once your bodyguard or another friendly officer lands a hit and staggers them, and open them up for one of your combos. But I mean, come on, it's not really a great tool, let's be honest. In Samurai Warriors, you want to kill enemies quickly and move from objective to objective, so a move to just sit there doing nothing is not the most appealing thing to have in your kit. Your other special move in Samurai Warriors 2 Extreme Legends, though, is actually good, like really good, although it's a bit clunky and awkward to use. Your special square move in Samurai Warriors 2 is to pick an enemy up off the ground and throw them, and doing this deals like really big damage. I think it might be like tied to officer max HP percentage or something like that, but it does more damage than most characters, like full square combos. It's really good, and you can semi-reliably combo it, you know, do a setup where you quickly knock the enemy to the ground and then quickly pick them up. However, the chance of success here is somewhat random, because if an enemy recovers mid-air and doesn't allow themselves to hit the ground, this won't work. Same goes for his one square triangle, which juggles the enemy, whacking them into the air with your sword and then kicking a ball up into the air to hit them mid-air. However, I found you can pretty much infinitely juggle just one square, one triangle, one square, one triangle. Unless the enemy recovers mid-air, like they should be able to at any time, but just sometimes they just won't, and you can just kind of infinitely juggle them this way. That's kind of funny, and it's kind of a OP little trick. So with all these little gimmicks, and the fact that it's kind of cool seeing this character use a sword but also kicking a ball around to fight. It's a very visually appealing style of fighting. It's almost like if a stupid old man Titus made his way into Samurai Warriors. But overall in these old games, he feels really weak. So weak that I don't think his gimmicks really make up for it. So I wouldn't rate him anything higher than a C in the gameplay in the old games. In the old games, it really stands out how bad he is at clearing big crowds of enemies. It's like a huge problem when you start playing Yoshimoto in hard mode. And he doesn't really improve a whole lot in Samurai Warriors 4, which is the next game I played him in. Now, obviously, he gets hyper attacks, so he gets attacks that are really fucking good at dealing with big groups of enemies easily, but so does anyone else in the cast. So what does Yoshimoto bring to the table in this game? Well, he doesn't have 2 special attacks anymore, and puzzlingly, the special attack that he kept is the play dead one, except now it's even more useless. Now there's lots of ways that the enemy can hit you even while you're on the ground. So what the fuck? Also, It deals a bit of damage when you hit the ground when you faint now, but that's not all that good. So your Muso does regenerate fairly quickly over time while you're playing dead, which might seem decent, except if the enemy hits you while you're on the ground, which they can easily do, it interrupts that. So frankly, this is kind of a stupid addition. I would have much preferred his pick enemies up up off the ground move instead. Also, he has hyper attacks, so not the ranged kicky ball explode move anymore, and that move was a good opener, though without that, Yoshimoto Imagawa doesn't have an opener in his moveset, so I would definitely not play Yoshimoto on Nightmare mode in Samurai Warriors 4 if I could help it, which you can because there's almost... In fact, I'm not sure there's even a single stage for Yoshimoto in Samurai Warriors 4 2. There might be in Samurai Warriors 4 base game, but I'm pretty sure he's the enemy. I don't think he has his own story mode. So in the story modes, there's pretty much no opportunity to play him. He barely has a story. So anyway, we're talking about his gameplay mechanics. Whoops, off track. I'm gonna give him a C, and it's kind of a C- for his gameplay mechanics. Over the course of the series, he's had one or two kinda OP little tricks that keep him from being a D. But other than those tricks, he's definitely a D. Like, he feels like one of the worst, if not the worst, characters to play overall. But, you know, when you learn these little tricks that are kinda cheesy and OP, it makes him feel like not the worst. Anyway, let's talk about Yoshimoto's design now. His design is it's very unique and novel and recognizable. Like, when I saw him in the Samurai Warriors 1 Extreme Legends character roster, I was like, I gotta give this guy a try. He looks ridiculous. Big, fat clown with a sword and a ball. Like, who would think that character would be in this game? So, you know, kind of memorably and iconically ugly and stupid looking. So, honestly, I kind of like it. I'm gonna give his design an A because while it's quite recognizable, it's still, you know, this. I don't know how else to explain it. To be honest, I'm really looking forward to Yoshimoto and Samurai Warriors 5. I think his redesign is like the most improved redesign that I've seen of the cast so far. And I'm really looking forward to him. Hopefully he has a little bit of that jovial silliness to him, but he's actually a serious and imposing and threatening figure, like he actually was historically. Nobunaga didn't easily overcome him, so I'm glad he's returning, but he's been truly reinvented, and I don't think I'm gonna miss the old Yoshimoto all that much, to be honest. Anyway, give him his final ranking now. Gameplay/power level, he got a C. Story and characterization, he got our first D tier. But design and cool factor, I gave him an A, because while he's certainly not cool looking, he's memorably stupid and silly looking, and I really like his fighting style. Not necessarily how it works mechanically, but how it looks in motion. So in the end, that's gonna give him a final rating of C. He's a C tier character, he's the first character to score that low. I feel like that's appropriate. He's not like a completely boring or unwanted character, but certainly not on my list of favorite characters though. And he almost never makes the cut when I'm looking for which character do I actually want to play. Alright, so on to our next character. And this character, he's been around since Samurai Warriors 2 Extreme Legends, but for now his run in the game comes to a beautiful end. It's Kojiro Sasaki.
It's all so cruel. So ugly. Everyone is just so weak. Poor things.
No! Please don't!
I'll give you all a beautiful end.
So I'll admit, I'm quite biased when it comes to creepy, pale, androgynous, villainous, but fabulous katana-wearing femboys. In all honesty, it's a big part of why I'm a big fan of various anime and video games and pop culture made in Japan, because something about this kind of character design really strongly appeals to me. I don't know what that says about me, but there you go, I'm laying my bias out in the open. In Samurai Warriors 2, before he was playable in Extreme Legends, he played a very minor role in the story. There was always a sense of mystery around him, which was cool. And he played a major role in Musashi Miyamoto's story, which is, I think, one of the last story modes you unlock. Other than that, another cool thing was that he was a secret unlockable bodyguard that you could unlock by getting to a really high level in Samurai Warriors 2's survival mode. He's even technically kinda playable in Samurai Warriors 2 base game. although he only has the moveset of a generic sword-wielding officer, and you can only play him by using Nene's special transformation move once you unlock him as a bodyguard. But he made his playable debut in Samurai Warriors 2 Extreme Legends, and right out of the gate, he's a really fun to play and strong character. He's got amazing crowd clearing capabilities. He's got a ranged guard break / stun opener. In fact, he's got 2 of those. His special moves are kinda His special square's like, okay, I guess. I mean, it's one fairly powerful hit. It's not a guard break, and you can't combo with it in any way, since it sends them flying. But it's like, not bad, I guess. And his invisibility special move, I'm still yet to kind of see the point of it. It costs a whole bunch of Musha, so it doesn't really feel all that worth using. Enemies still look at you when you're invisible, which is weird, but they don't seem to attack you. I'm not sure what the point of this move is meant to be. Maybe you can use it to bypass a bunch of enemies and run away, but it's not really what you want to be doing in Samurai Warriors. But despite his kinda lackluster special moves in Samurai Warriors 2, he is completely fine with that, because his kit overall is one of the straight up strongest kits in Samurai Warriors 2. In Samurai Warriors 2, he's definitely an S tier character in the gameplay department for several reasons. For one, he's got a ranged guard break opener. He also has another guard break, his 5 square triangle, his 7 or his 7 or 8 square triangle. I'm having trouble remember, but he's got this move where he creates a slowed down time field. His 2 square triangle stunner move hits at a distance and causes you to jump away. And enemy AI in Samurai Warriors has always been simple. Basically, if you're far away, they'll probably stop blocking, so it's almost like a kinda unblockable stun move, because every time you use it, they drop their guard, and then the stun hit comes from range just after that. And it really can't be overstated just how amazing Kojiro's crowd clearing ability is in Samurai Warriors 2 compared to all the other characters, especially his Musha. His Musou move in this game is just busted. Granted, it's not very good at killing officers, but you've got tons of tools for killing strong officers in your regular moves. So yeah, Kojiro, definitely god tier in the gameplay department in Samurai Warriors 2. I never played him in Samurai Warriors 3, so let's get to how he plays in Samurai Warriors 4. Now in Samurai Warriors 4, he's still good, don't get me wrong, but he lacks a bit of the stuff that made him kind of broken in Samurai Warriors 2. So first major thing is now every character's a god tier crowd clearing character, so a character like Kojiro no longer stands out in that regard. Kind of a major flaw with the later games in my opinion, but there you go. Also, because of hyper attacks, Kojiro no longer has his ranged guard break / stun move. This is a shame, because this move was really good, like really good. So now he lacks that really strong opener. However, he's still really good in Samurai Warriors 4 because he has another opener. His previous special attacks are gone, and now he has just the one special attack, and it's a counter move, kind of like Mitsuhide is from Samurai Warriors 2 or Samurai Warriors 4. Basically, you use your special move, and then if an enemy tries to attack you in a brief window after that, you do a big counter move. And it's really quite good, and it's almost a good replacement for his old opener, but the timing on it can be a little awkward, especially since enemy AI behavior is quite random in Samurai Warriors. So you can often find yourself doing it and then they don't attack until a split second after the animation wears off, and then they just hit you instead of you doing the counter move. So I'm not sure I would rely on this counter special move on Nightmare difficulty where a few hits means death. Overall, the rest of his normal / charge attacks are still just as great, so there's still a lot to like about Kojiro in Samurai Warriors 4. So I'd give him an A rating in terms of gameplay in that game. So overall, that's going to leave Kojiro's final score for gameplay as an A+, the highest so far. He's both super easy to play, and he's really good at dealing with the toughest challenges these games have to throw at you. In Samurai Warriors 2, he might actually be the single best character. I'm interested to see what you guys think. Am I dead wrong on that? Is there one character in the roster way better than Kojiro. In Samurai Warriors 2, that is. But anyway, let's move on to his story and characterization. So in Samurai Warriors 2 base game, he's a unique NPC that shows up from time to time. All that is really known about him is that he's a kind of creepy guy who really is into battles where a lot of bloodshed is going down. After you play through a lot of story modes and unlock Musashi Miyamoto's story mode, you get a little bit more to Kojiro. Basically, Musashi and Kojiro have a rivalry where it's kinda basic and silly, but basically Musashi's all like, my sword is used for saving people and bringing people together, whereas Kojiro's like, hehe, my sword is for murder. Murder is sick. And this causes them to like clash, kind of, and like really I could go over what happens in Kojiro's storyline, but that basic little premise I just gave you is what's it. Musashi's motivated by what the battle brings after it's done, whereas Kojiro is all about living in the moment with the battle itself. It could be an interesting thematic rivalry to explore, but the way it's explored in Samurai Warriors 2 is all very shallow and style over substance, which I think is fine. It's acceptable, but it's not really a compelling story that's being told there. So, in the end, I'm gonna give Kojiro's story and characterization a C. I really do like his cold and creepy demeanor, but I like it so much that I'm probably overlooking that his story is kinda shallow and stupid, to be honest with you. Oh, and I mean, I didn't talk about his role in the story of Samurai Warriors 4 because it barely even exists. Basically, you get a little bit of dialogue from him in survival mode and in chronicle mode. I don't even think Kojiro features in a single story mode battle, but yet here he is, playable. It's kind of weird. Now, on to the last thing, which I think is giving me a strong bias in favor of Kojiro that many of you might think he doesn't deserve, which is his design/cool factor. I really dig Kojiro Sasaki's design, and like I said before, that's partly because of personal bias, but also I just think Kojiro just looks super damn cool, and I really love his personality and general demeanor. His kind of cold, detached, callous approach to the battles and the enemies that he faces, and also how he just enjoys living in the moment, just enjoys the battle and the killing itself, and is completely shameless in that fact. Basically, it's kind of like an immortal vampire or something made its way into the cast of Samurai Warriors, and I really dug it. Call this personal bias all you want, but I'm giving Kojiro's design and cool factor an S tier. Also, his whole fighting with his main hand weapon, but then also floating swords that he like controls with telekinesis or whatever. Super sick. I really love his weapon. So, let's get to his final rating then. We got an A+ in the gameplay/power level. You probably would have gotten an S tier if it was just Samurai Warriors 2, but series as a whole we have to consider. Story and characterization, I only gave him a C tier. Honestly, it's probably kinda saved from my biases. If I wasn't already partial to the kind of tropes that Kojiro embodied, I might give him a D tier because his story and role in the greater story of feudal Japan is like almost non-existent in Samurai Warriors. But he gets an S tier for design and cool factor, brings his final score to an A-. This character I'm really gonna miss from the cast in Samurai Warriors 5, but at the same time I'm really eagerly awaiting when some of the characters not present in the game, hopefully Kojiro, are reintroduced. I really think Kojiro could shine even brighter in the new anime ink paint art style, so I hope to see him again. Next up from the random character draw, kind of a fitting follow-up to Kojiro and especially to Hanzo, it's Kotaro Fuma.
I am Kotaro Fuma, God of evil. I am the black soul of chaos.
Kotaro Fuma made his debut in Samurai Warriors 2 and was one of the very first characters I played because his design really strongly appealed to me as an edgy teenager. His role in the story in Samurai Warriors 2 was like really ahistoric. Basically in Samurai Warriors 2, Kotaro is a god of evil and chaos, or like a demon or something. Kind of unclear, but definitely supernatural and not of this world. And I think they did a really good job conveying that through gameplay. So let's get into the gameplay mechanics and power level of Kotaro. So Kotaro has his famous and iconic stretchy arms, which leads to a very fun and powerful moveset. He's got pretty damn good crowd clear straight off the bat. His attacks are really fast, but really short ranged, so he kind of finds himself struggling against long-ranged polearm wielding characters like Ieyasu or Hideyoshi. But what I really like is that he's very nimble and acrobatic, and his playstyle really encourages you to dive in and out, dealing a bunch of damage quickly and then quickly withdrawing or double jumping to safety. His special moves in Samurai Warriors 2 are decent. One is a unblockable grapple move, but at a fairly short range. It's pretty good. When you're on the defensive and an officer is blocking you, you can grapple them, deal a decent amount of damage, and break their guard. It does throw them away though, so you can't combo off of it. It's alright, but hardly an OP or an abusable special move. His special triangle move is a ranged fireball barrage. Again, it's just okay. It's got a big wind-up time, so you can't use it point-blank range at all. It doesn't deal a crazy amount of damage, and it is blockable, but it's a good way of softening up a crowd of enemies. But to be honest, I found myself only really using this move when Kotaro is in his early levels. As he levels up, you find yourself not really using this special attack anymore. But other than that, all of his normals and charge moves are all very solid, unlike his stretchy body. His base triangle move, once you level up, is like really good. It's a guard break, but it's also a big crowd clearing move. You can press it once and just get the guard break element and then combo into it, which is nice. Or you can spam it and do a huge cartwheel roll through a big group of enemies and break guard, deal a bunch of damage. What's not to like? You can even double jump out of it to safety, so it's pretty much unpunishable. All the rest of your moves are all really solid too. Solid, but not OP, nothing to write home about. In Samurai Warriors 4, they switched him from being a charge-focused character to being a hyper-focused character, like every other ninja in Samurai Warriors 4. I personally think he was a little better as a charge character, and I really miss his base triangle move. Who doesn't like to Shadow the Hedgehog spin your way through crowds of enemies? And without that move, he kind of actually lacks a strong opener. His special grapple move is a lot better in Samurai Warriors 4, as it lowers the affected enemy's defenses, but, you know, Kotaro doesn't have a cheese move or an opener like he does in Samurai Warriors 2 with his cartwheel. So overall, he feels a little weaker in Samurai Warriors 4, to be honest. But overall, he's always been solid. He still is. He was a little more solid back then, but I'm going to give his gameplay rating an A. A well-deserved A. Now, story and characterization, like I mentioned, in Samurai Warriors 2, he's like the god of chaos or a demon or something. It's all a bit weird. His story mode is really fun and memorable, partly because it's really cheesy and kinda stupid. He starts off a ninja doing stuff for the Hojo, but the whole time he's all just like, I only fight because I like the chaos. Chaos is good. This peace bores me. These enemies bore me. I'm too good to be beaten by anyone. So eventually he gets bored of winning every battle for his masters, so he decides to turn against the Hojo and take over all of Japan himself. By the way, it's definitely not what happened in real-life feudal Japan. In the process, he enslaves Ieyasu and his rival Hanzo, and I always felt a bit weird and sorry for Hanzo while playing Kotaro story mode in Samurai Warriors 2. His whole story mode, he just relentlessly bullies this guy, humiliating him in battle, enslaving his master, and in the end, asserting dominance over him, showing he could easily kill Hanzo, but deciding to spare him. This was my first introduction to Hanzo, and I almost felt a bit mad, even though I wasn't like a existing Hanzo fan, but I felt like if I was, I'd be pissed by his portrayal in Kotaro's story mode. Anyway, then after Kotaro conquers all of Japan, he decides to just hand it over to Ieyasu just like for the memes or something. I don't really know. And then he just literally fades into thin air. So his story mode was a fun, enjoyable, but really stupid romp. But I kinda love it. I'd give his story mode in Samurai Warriors 2 a B tier for that reason. Now I never played Samurai Warriors free, and the only videos I could find showing the cutscenes for Kotaro Fuma are in Japanese with no English subtitles, so I have to do some educated guessing about Kotaro Fuma's story in Samurai Warriors 3, but basically it seems like they've ditched the whole callous, evil god of chaos thing, and now he's like a relatable, friendly dude, which is honestly kinda weird given his appearance and everything. But this is carried over to Samurai Warriors 4 as well, what little role he plays in the story of Samurai Warriors 4. Well, in base game Samurai Warriors 4, I'm pretty sure they have a Hojo campaign, but I never actually played that one, and I don't own Samurai Warriors 4 anymore, whoops. In 4.2, Kotaro has a very limited role, and I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Feels like they don't have a whole lot to do with Kotaro anymore, now that they've ditched the whole God of Evil gimmick. So now he's just kind of a weirdly sympathetic and nice guy who hangs out with the Hojo characters and dies fighting for them. It's fine, I guess. But overall, it feels like they just don't have a coherent direction they want to take this character. So I'm gonna give Kotaro a C in the story department. Now, in terms of his character design and cool factor and his weapons and everything, I absolutely love it. He's an easy S tier for me. One of the most visually striking characters in Samurai Warriors 2, and his designs stayed pretty consistently good across all the games. So, not a whole lot to say, you know, he definitely fits the demonic / evil chaotic appearance. And his clothing and his apparel and his weapon, he looks like he'd fit into like a fighting game, like Tekken or Street Fighter or something, as a villain character. So yeah, in the end, he gets a A in gameplay, a C in story, and an S in design, which leaves him with an A- score. Up there in the same tier as Kojiro. I guess I have a thing for edgy, detached, evil characters, huh? So far, Kotaro Fuma is not in Samurai Warriors 5, which is kind of to be expected, you know. The Hojo don't really come into play until long after, where Samurai Warriors 5's story will likely end, so I'm really gonna miss him. I think he was a great addition to the cast, and can't wait to see him make a comeback. So yeah, sayonara for now, Kotaro Fuma. Hopefully we see you again. Okay, that's gonna do it for episode 1 of ranking and saying farewell to the entire cast of Samurai Warriors. I'll be releasing one of these every week or so until I've covered the entire cast of Samurai Warriors. So if you want to see what your favorite character gets ranked, and want to see more content in general, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to comment below telling me who's your favorite and least favorite character from Samurai Warriors. And if you disagree about the rankings I gave to the characters in this video, then check the description below. There's a link to a poll where you can give your own ratings on the characters that I rated here. If a character gets enough votes and the score is a lot different than mine, then maybe I'll bump them up or down, depending on what you find people think. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.